Yeah.
All right, welcome everybody. I should have had a prayer before we did the thing. I'll do it. Father in heaven, we're grateful to be here. We're grateful for the Sabbath day. Bless us to have the Spirit and not say any apostasy. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
All right. Let's do some apostasy. Okay.
It's better ask for forgiveness.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's always, where were we? We were with Whitney's family or something. No, it was Matt's family, and there's a stack of Costco pizzas. And we were debating, like, is it worth trying to bless it? Like, there's no food value. This is a fishes and loaves miracle if it's blessed. And everybody's like, no, you gotta bless it, nourish and strengthen and so on. Okay, ambition. Exodus 19 to 40. This is where it gets real, y'all. Okay. If I were to pitch a room of North American Christians, the question, what is the point of the book of Exodus? They would probably say, the plagues in the Exodus. That's where the Prince of Egypt cuts off. I submit to you that that is because of a bias that we'll talk about. And that the point of the book is actually what happens here. The actual, the covenant making. Here, buddy. Go play with the grave digger. Okay. So I want to read you a quote from this dude named Levinson. This is actually probably not going to be very quotey. It's probably a paraphrase. I wrote this like a week and a half ago. Okay, so the focus of Israelite religion is like priestly authority and doing sacrifices in the temple, like having the law and the covenant. According to the scholar Levinson, Protestant distaste for the law of Moses, because of Paul talking about how lame it is, and priestly cultic practice colors our view of this part of the story, which makes us see the deliverance from Egypt as the climax of the story rather than the giving of the law and the covenant. I don't think it's hyperbole to tell you that what we're about to read is the most important story in the entire Old Testament. Everything calls back to this. How are you, my friend? Oh, you're just out of camera again, aren't you? So let's talk about some interesting stuff that's going on there. We talked at the very beginning about what it was going to be like to go through the laws of the Bible. One of the genres in the Old Testament is legal collection. I did not say legal code. I don't think they want. I'm not going to those, dude. Because codes are systematic and they're comprehensive. And the laws in the Bible are anything but comprehensive or systematic. They're just loose collections of rules. But the rules are the defining characteristic of the covenant itself. So we've talked about a couple covenants in the story. There's a covenant with, Abraham, that his seed are going to multiply and they're going to own this spit of land called Canaan. That is in jeopardy because everybody was slaves in Egypt. And now they're headed back. But it's going to be a long road. And these rules that they're going to get are the characteristics. So this is a quote from Christine Hayes. If you guys want to have a great time, you want to have a fun weekend, you want to look up Christine Hayes on YouTube. Yale courses.
I've seen some of ours.
They're great. I can't watch them at regular speed. I gotta watch them at 2 times speed because they talk so slow. But yeah, they're good. And in fact, I would say probably 20 to 30% of what I put on the board comes from this course. It's a survey course of Old Testament literature. It's a little old. The audio quality is great. The video quality is sketchy. And of course, we don't have our handouts and stuff. But it's really good. It's a really good overview of how scholars look at biblical literature, from a scholarly perspective, not from a devotional perspective, which is the kind of thing they like to do at big universities. They like to do that early on in your college career, is have some sort of like challenge your preconceived notions class. And those are the ones that get on the internet. Okay. In order to understand, it's the law, it's the Ten Commandments. So 19 kicks it off, 20 is the Ten Commandments. We'll talk about how sketchy that designation is. And then it just goes on with like other weird adventures and rules. So check it out. The first thing I want you to know about the Ten Commandments actually has nothing to do with biblical law at all. We want to talk about Hittite, suzerain, vassal treaties. That's what the people turn out for, right? Okay, so the Hittites are like an ancient Near Eastern people. So really interesting ideas start to pan out when you compare biblical law collections to other laws from this time period. So like the laws of Hammurabi we've talked about. It's the one on the big stele. But remember I said that they're not really codes because they're not comprehensive? Hammurabi's law doesn't mention murder. Which if you're running an empire seems like an important one. You have these other collections like the laws of Ornamu and the laws of Ishtar and the laws of Ishnuma and the Hittite codes. That's what we're going to look at now. And the Middle Assyrian laws, which are Assyrian. Which is to say brutal and insane. Okay, so we're using the Hittite phrases for this, a suzerain and vassal, that's landlord. The suzerain is a landlord. Because according to a scholar named Levinson, he notices a pattern, right, when comparing how the rest of Exodus is going to play out to this type of landlord contract, a lease contract basically, that you find in surviving Hittite laws. So basically what it is a landlord and a community will create a covenant to occupy a specific piece of land. Oh, I hope there's nothing weird back there. To occupy a specific piece of land and, pay taxes and owe fealty to the suzerain, to the Lord. Now these types of contracts tend to have 6 pieces. A preamble, a historical prologue that talks about the history of like how the people came to be with the suzerain. Stipulations and requirements, invocation of witnesses, and a list of blessings for faithfulness to the agreement and curses for breach of contract. Okay, so according to Levinson, every single one of these shows up somewhere in Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, or Deuteronomy. So it's handy to think of the law, the covenant of Moses, in this way, because one of the things that this format allows us to see, besides like interesting patterns in the law itself, it also allows us to see why those might be a part of the law. So for example, under stipulations and requirements, you will often see rules about how the covenant relationship is to be enshrined. What kind of monument are the vassals supposed to make in memory of their Lord? What kind of holidays are they supposed to celebrate to commemorate the completion of the contract? What are the taxes or the sacrifices they're supposed to make in order to stay on the land? Now here's what's really interesting. We're going to read a little bit of this, but we're going to, preamble, historical prologue, it can be really short. As we are reading through this, where we would expect to see the rules about how a covenant like this is supposed to be enshrined, we get a bunch of rules about how to make an ark covered in gold, made of acacia wood, and put in a tent that is supposed to travel with them everywhere. And right where we would expect to find all the rules about the annual feast they're supposed to celebrate in honor of their Lord, we find Israel getting a whole bunch of rules about this weekly festival called Sabbath that they're supposed to celebrate. And it goes on like this. We end up being able to find these pieces, and when you think of the Sabbath as a holiday, as a feast in honor of something, when you think of the tabernacle as a monument, a place where the spirit of the law is enshrined, it becomes, I think, less weird, esoteric, gobbledygook. So let's get in there. Let's have some fun. I'm in 19. Yeah, can somebody go to Exodus 19 and start at 3? We're probably gonna go to like 5 or 6.
And Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on the eagle's wings, and brought you unto that myself. Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be particular treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine.
Thank you.
It was peculiar,
What do you say?
particular.
Oh, sorry, peculiar.
Yeah.
Sorry,
It says
peculiar.
peculiar.
In the King James.
Yeah, that's worse somehow.
Yes.
Particular was already weird.
5 or something.
I'm gonna say, so my translation is treasure.
Yeah, be my
So-
treasured possession.
So here's what's going on. It's a type. What do you believe? Possession. Wait, you had peculiar treasure. Is that right?
Yes.
And this one, the other one says treasured possession.
Mm-hmm.
Because treasure would be ridiculous. What am I doing wrong here? Okay. The idea is that a king, a landlord, has 2 accounts, 2 sets of books. There are the state resources that are used for, building irrigation and maintaining a military. And then there's the king's personal property. The treasures, the jewels, the gifts from other states. That's what Israel's supposed to be. So when we talk about like them being a chosen people or a special separate people, the idea that is being conveyed through this sort of sacred history is that this people is supposed to achieve holiness through living these laws, like imitation of God's life to become like the Lord and become his like personal stock of treasure, I guess. It's a weird way to think about it, but it's like when we read, like when Jesus talks about gathering the fruit and burning the trees that yield no fruit, you get the sense that everyone and everything is expendable. And that's not the sense that's showing up here. Okay. Okay, the rest of 19 is going to be the Lord saying, hey, bring everybody to the foot of the mountain and I'll talk to them. Okay, let's go to 20. The Decalogue. Let's talk about that Decalogue, kids. Man, these are some chaotic notes, y'all. Okay. Did I ever write the word Decalogue? No. The 10 Commandments are never called the 10 Commandments in the Bible. They are considered the 10 sayings. Except 10 is really problematic because there's really more like 13, and some groups will divide them up differently. So like the first 2 are actually 1, and so you just call them like the sayings. And here's another biblical mystery. There's 3 different sets. So Exodus 20, God gives these, this is what we call the 10 Commandments section. Moses up the mountain, got these plates, he comes down, there's golden calf antics going on. I was just playing the music stand. And that first set of plates gets trashed, right? So then, this is in Exodus 34, Moses goes back up the mountain and says, oh yeah, those broke, we need another set. And then it says, the Lord wrote the same words on other tablets. And then it tells us what he wrote, and it doesn't match this at all. It doesn't match Exodus 20. And then, there's another list in Deuteronomy 17 that are supposed to be like the commandments God gave at Sinai, and they don't match. Like, I think 2 of them match. Like it's 8 completely different commandments. So what's going on here? Okay. Remember we talked about sources? You got J, because they say Jehovah, and you got E, because they say Elohim. You got P, because they're priestly. And you got D. This is finally D's time to shine. We've been waiting for D to come out of the wings this whole time. Okay. Remember that the documentary hypothesis where we name these guys is a little bit old-fashioned. So a lot of scholars today will use some version of this, but not exactly this. My favorite one is where all of these are just different flavors of P. But the basic idea is you hear 2 different voices talking in Exodus that don't show up in Leviticus and Numbers. There's a very distinct voice in Leviticus and Numbers, and it seems to be the same guy that inserted all that stuff about 7 unclean animals in the Noah's Ark story. 7 clean animals and 2 unclean animals. And then D is like its own flavor, completely new thing. The reason I'm interrupting our discussion of the end of Exodus to talk about all this is that this is where it's headed. We're supposed to hit Leviticus next week. Spoiler alert, at the end of Exodus, so far they've established the covenant and they have all their laws, and it's going so badly that Moses isn't allowed to go into the tabernacle tent. And that's where we pick up in Leviticus 1. It's like what Moses does next now that he can't actually go into where God is. Okay. Let's hit it. Let's read some commandments. Anybody, there's no, like, because of how different groups choose to divide this up, there's not really a way for me to say, hey, read number 1, read number 2. We kind of just have to start in 20 and start grinding. Who wants to do it?
Okay. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in water under the earth.
Pause. Graven image, sculpted. It doesn't have to be engraved. But here's what's interesting. Image, when Genesis says humans are made in the image of God, it's the same word. Like the language surrounding the creation of humans is very much God sitting down to create idols of something. Okay, keep going.
Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the 3rd and 4th generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy.
Oh, wait, pause. Hate would be better rendered as reject. But also, this is a crazy idea. How many generations?
3 or 4.
Okay, so Exodus 22, God will punish later generations. It's an installment plan. You spread out the punishment. I'm pausing here to point out something. Deuteronomy, God, is not on the same page about how many generations get punished. Only those who do the crime do the time. There. So, Ed, why are you making such a big deal about the inconsistencies in the law? Because A, if we think of everything that we're about to read in the law as being 100% original God-brain thoughts that no one ever had before, then we are tempted to give them more weight than the original authors did or intended that we should. Does that make sense? it's spooky, it's weird for this weird Hawaiian shirt guy to come in here and be like, yeah, it's all the laws. But they're weird and contradictory, and you probably shouldn't use them to guide your life. Yeah, you know what? I'll go ahead and be that guy. I'll take that hit for the team. Because the thing is, if you misunderstand the relationship of these rules, and the reason they are given, and the way they come to be injected together into this Frankenstein collection in the text, if you misunderstand them, then you risk giving them all equal weight and not seeing how they actually function. So here's the thing. This thing has rules about who is allowed to do sacrifices. There are actually two kinds of rules. There are, what are the words? Apodictic. And casuistic. Okay, casuistic statements are if then. If your ox gores a pregnant woman, and she loses the baby, then you have to pay her husband the amount of a dead baby goat, I think it is. That one shows up in, I'm pretty sure that's Deuteronomy. So it's an if then. Then there are casuistic. No, then there are apodictic laws. Thou shalt not. So here's a funny drinking game to play. Anytime you find a law that ends in I am the Lord, there's no punishment. That's just God saying, hey, casuistic laws, the community, the judges, they're responsible for these. Anytime you got one of these, it's going to end with I am the Lord, because he's the one watching out for that. This legal system is so revolutionary too, compared to the other ones that we talked about, or that I mentioned, because of that, because there are thou shalt nots, and I, the Lord, am the one who enforces that rule, it makes crimes become sins. Which is weird. I'm not a huge fan of that, you guys. I don't like the overlap between those two things, but it gives you an interesting peek into the DNA of the society that is being remembered by the scribes. Again, the scribes out here in the exilic or post-exilic period who are trying to reconstruct what's going on over here. So, the reason we have so many voices telling so many different versions of this story is because they're trying to reconstruct something. And what they're trying to reconstruct is the DNA of their own heritage. Okay, so yeah, watch out for I am the Lord's. And side note, as we explore the rest of these rules, over the next few weeks, we're gonna feel that these laws are really like draconian, right? To us, it seems bonkers that if somebody knocks out another guy's tooth, that first guy must lose a tooth. That's crazy, right? But here's what's really interesting. This system is so fair. It is so egalitarian. Everyone, except for slaves, is the same before the law, which you do not get in the other law systems we talked about. So the Hittite treaty, the Hittite treaties, the Neo-Assyrian laws, Hammurabi's laws had class baked into them. Your punishment is determined by your class. So if you, it's something like if you injure a man, but you are a ruling class, you can pay a fine. But if you are a commoner, then you must also be injured. Stuff like that. The Neo-Assyrian laws are so nuts, you guys. Okay. In Neo-Assyrian laws, if somebody commits a sexual assault warning, if somebody commits a rape, the punishment is that man's wife gets raped. Under this law set, some parts of this law set, somebody commits a sexual assault, and then what happens next depends on the husband of the, husband or father of the person who was assaulted. That determines who gets killed. And a lot of the time, the punishment is just death, regardless of class. It's death. Which is funny because in the Babylonian, in Hammurabi's laws, the death penalty is only prescribed for accidentally killing someone because they don't mention intentional murder. Accidentally killing someone or intentionally having sex with an animal. It's death for both of those under Hammurabi's laws. But here, it's very, very egalitarian. There's no class consciousness. Everybody suffers the same. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. There's no getting out of it. No matter how much money you have, which is a refreshing change of pace. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep reading them commandments. Did anybody get the sense from those first bunch of statements we read? So it's verse 3, 4, and 5. Was that one commandment or 3? Or 2?
Not make a graven image or bow down before the,
Yeah, is that 2 things or 1?
yeah, and have no other gods. Is that, yeah, it could be three.
Dude, different flavors of Christianity will
It's like one law with bullet points.
yeah. So different flavors of Christianity. I wish I brought the chart in that shows it. Some traditions have all those verses as the first law, and some subdivided into 2, and different versions of Judaism have it split up different ways, which is why every time I watch that episode of King of the Hill where the dude has the 10 Commandments tattooed on his back, I crack up, because I think he goes, "Oh, you're breaking number 5, man." And he whips off his shirt and shows his 10 Commandments tattoo. And I'm sitting there, and you can't read it because it's cartoon scribble. I'm just thinking, like, what numbering system, man? Okay. Somebody pick up 6. Okay, yeah. Punishment upon the 3rd and 4th generations of those who reject me, but showing kindness to the 1,000th generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. Somebody give me 7. What do you guys have for verse 7?
Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain.
Swear falsely. By God's beard. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. There's this funny thing that happens in our culture where people take, because of King James, this is King James's fault, 100%, that the people believe that the rule is about when you're allowed to say God's name, and the rule is actually, in its earliest language, about whether or not you use sacred oaths to BS people. You know what I mean? I didn't want to talk more about that. Okay. 8.
Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy.
Oh, there's a reason given.
6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, and the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughters, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them is, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it.
For you guys, it says stranger in town. Mine says alien resident in your town.
Yeah, foreigners. Foreigners, yeah. So this is a big deal. And in fact, let's rewind back to the Sodom and Gomorrah time. Because I'm sure everybody wants to hear me rattle on about that some more. So the issue, remember I said the issue was hospitality. So these foreigners show up, and everybody in the town, every man, it says, wants to assault them. When I talk about hospitality, we as Westerners are thinking, yeah, somebody knocks on your door, you offer a glass of water. Ancient Near Eastern hospitality rules are about making strangers and foreigners family. It is about treating people with dignity and love and making enemies friends. And Sodom famously wouldn't. And so this is codifying it. Nobody works, not even foreigners, because back in those days, you could do stuff on the grounds that you were a foreigner, right? Like you don't have to. It's not a when in Rome situation, right? People would be like, "Oh no, don't eat that fruit," and you're like, "It's okay. I'm from a place where they eat this fruit. And it's good. No questions asked. Okay, keep going.
Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee.
Give it. Oh, that's very cool. So this one's foreshadowing the arrival in Canaan. That's very cool. I hadn't picked up on that before. Okay, here we go.
Thou shalt not kill.
Oh! Murder. The word being translated as kill, it denotes an intentional taking of a human life. Which, actually, there's no if then. This is an apodictic. Don't kill. I'm watching. Okay, keep going.
Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's
This
house.
is my favorite in seminary.
Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's.
Yeah, leave your neighbor's ass alone. Okay, so he says this, and then thunder and lightning comes out of this cloud, and everybody freaks out. And they all go, hey, Moses, maybe you go up there and talk to that God. Okay, bye. Let me get out my other set so we can speed run the rest of what's going on in these chapters. Okay. At the end of chapter 20, he's going to get them instructions for making an altar to offer sacrifices on. So before they build, this is actually kind of interesting, before they build the tabernacle, they have to build an altar to do tabernacle-y stuff. Okay, 21. Where's all my stuff about slavery? Oh, we missing a sticky note. Yeah. Okay, so Exodus is going to say, in 21, these are laws about slaves. Exodus is going to say, man, the cart is before the horse on that. One of the things about this landlord trading is rules about how tenants are allowed to treat other tenants. You can't be doing wars with other guys who are on your lord's payroll. Okay. Exodus is going to say that an Israelite may serve as a slave to another Israelite for a period of 6 years, because on the 7th year, that's when all debts are forgiven and the whole economy restarts, in theory. Deuteronomy says that no Israelite may be a slave to another Israelite, period. You've got a lot more laws about, losing property and social and religious laws and how to celebrate the Sabbath and when to celebrate the Sabbath. I'm going super fast through chapters 22, 23. 24 is where things get really cool. Can somebody go to 24 and 3?
And Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord and all the judgments, and all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which the Lord hath said will we do. And Moses wrote all the words of the Lord, and rose up early in the morning, and built an altar under the hill, and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel.
Side note, pillars, using pillars for worship, is going to become a huge no-no by this time. But here, they're very much state sanctioned. Please.
And he sent young men of the children of Israel, which offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen unto the Lord. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins. And half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the book of the covenant and read in the audience of the people, and they said, all that the Lord hath said will we do, and be obedient. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it onto the people and said, behold the blood of the covenant which the Lord hath made with you concerning all the words. Then went up Moses and Aaron, Nadab and,
It's a bunch of dudes.
yeah. 70 of the elders of Israel. And they saw the God of Israel, and there was under his feet, and it were a paved work of sapphire stone, as it were the body of heaven in his clearness.
Okay, right there, thank you. They do this ritual where Moses has an altar, they built the altar, he surrounds it with 12 pillars, and then does a sacrifice. That's part of this ritual. That's signing on the dotted line.
So what are the pillars, like tall pillars or
Just rocks.
just rocks?
We would look at them and the technical term is steles, but they look like headstones. And in fact, the
They're short.
internet scholar Dan McClellan talks a lot about how when people go to talk to a headstone, their loved one isn't there, but we feel that some essence of that person is there. That is how monuments, he posits, have always worked. When there is a god who is a stone carving, the essence is there and you go talk to it. And that the two ideas are related. So Moses has an altar, he's sacrificing blood, and the pillars are to represent the tribes before God. Now, side note, the concept of the tribes of Israel is a little spotty because I think it's in Leviticus, or it might be Numbers. There's a list of the tribes, and there's only 11 of them, and one of them is the tribe of Gilead, who we have never heard of before. So, like, the question of there being 12 tribes and how all that works, like, we don't know. That's just what the narrative eventually comes to tell us. But yeah, it's like it's a altar surrounded by pillars. Pillars are going to be a huge problem by Isaiah's lifetime. Like that's how backward hill people worship by Isaiah's time. They're typically referred to as they're sometimes called poles later, and they're sometimes just called Asherah. And they're sometimes called groves. You'll hear Isaiah talk a lot about the high places and their groves. They're little nests of pillars. Okay. 24, 25, 26, how to build a tabernacle, how to cook the bread for the tabernacle, how to build the curtains, how to do the priestly vestments, who's going to be a priest. If you want to have some fun, if you want to have a fun weekend, chapter 28, verse 15, how to make a Urim and Thummim. 29, the ordaining of Aaron's sons as priests. 30, how to do the altar of incense. 32, where'd 31 happen? Oh yeah, this is these two guys. So God makes these commandments in 31. 32, the golden calf incident happens. And everything melts down. So they have to leave Sinai. The tent of God has to go outside of the camp. Moses can't go in there anymore. The covenant already has to be renewed. Moses' face shines so bright that he has to wear a veil. The tabernacle is constructed. The Ark of the Covenant is constructed. Incense recipes given. And by 39, the priests are still getting dressed. And the tabernacle is built. And the cloud of glory lays down on it. And that is what Exodus is all about, Charlie Brown. I want to do an object lesson real quick, because I know you guys are short on time. When I was a teenager, there was this game called Pirates of the Spanish Main. You build little ships, and we played this game. You build little ships, and you do little maneuvers, and you steal gold, and you can fight each other. There's rules about how to shoot the cannons and stuff. When the game first debuted in like 2002, this was the rule book. Every pack, you got one of these. These are all the special abilities and rules you would need to know. And then this was an instruction manual about how to build the models. And like, it basically is just an illustrated